Hello, I'm Amber, and today I'm going to be discussing Unit 1 of our political philosophy class, where we've discussed Adorno, Horkheimer, Marcuse, and Foucault, and their views on social agency as well as control. They each have different mechanisms and means of control that they touch on, such as media, capital, security, and the role of governance. And we're going to talk a little bit about how all of those could be interconnected here today. So for Adorno and Horkheimer, they're really interested in this idea of the culture industry. For them, this is really about standardization and the reproduction of sameness within artistic spaces, spaces such as film, media, and music. For them, amusement, free of all restraint, would be not only the opposite of art, but its complementary extreme. That is, um, while you're entertained by these amusements, you're not receiving that same sort of spiritual connection provided by art. Um, and for them, amusement always means putting things out of the mind, forgetting suffering, even when it's on display. And it's the root of powerlessness. And this sort of becomes its own ideal, which would replace more valuable ideals in their view, such as the real artistic vision of self-actualization. It reproduces them with a stereotype um, that is just mimicked throughout cultures. For Marcuse, He's he also believes in these ideas of social controls. But he's more interested in commodities and capital and the ways they influence modern neoliberal capitalism with their sort of conveniences that they may provide. So the quote here talks about several modern conveniences such as the automobile, Wi-Fi, kitchen equipment. And the very mechanism which ties the individual to his society has changed, and the social control is anchored in this new need which it has produced. Um, so this new need that Marcuse is touching on here is this need to participate in commodities. We can see this within the 1950s boom of appliances, right? You want to have this new convenient thing in order to free up time so that you can participate in those amusements discussed by Adorno and Horkheimer previously, right? Um, and that is sort of the imposition of false need that they're pushing against and declaring as one dimensionality. So for them, this one dimensionality, which like keeps people compressed into the status quo and hegemony itself, includes the imposition of false needs such as the newest, sleekest new phone, the best apartment, the loss of critical opposition. So, sort of never having a critical gaze on the sort of things that are told to you by the government and the people around you. And instrumental rationality, meaning using rationality as a tool to justify claims which disproportionately harm other groups. Yes, yes. And Foucault sort of wraps all of this up together in a really nice bow through his ideas of governmentality and biopolitics. And for him, governmentality is the way in which the behavior of a set of individual becomes involved more markedly in sovereign power, such as the state of reason. So this argument is largely developed around the idea that we have developed this reasonable society that we've all decided as a governmentality we will participate in. But the really important thing here is biopolitics, and this idea of thinking of people as a mass, of coexisting things, right? But also as data points, and this is becomes really important as we continue to think about ways that power is redistributed within us. One example that Foucault gives that particularly stands out in this case is that of healthcare. And he discusses the ways that governments have the resources to curb epidemics, implement flu shots, implement regulations upon healthcare providers, and the ways that that severely increases the safety of m millions of citizens. And the government also has the ability to deny that care if they so choose. And this leaves citizens in a precarious situation regarding security as they struggle to sort of maintain hegemony or face like health insecurity and not get the care that they need, right? So it sort of forces people into systems through other mechanisms. And we can talk more about those sorts of mechanisms as well. Um, but this is the graphic that I designed in order to sort of show you all the way that Foucault is perceiving biopower and the way that power is situated. And for him, it's more all-encompassing, coming from several different directions at once. It can't be identified by one particular source. Power is all over and can be claimed by the self, but if the self cannot be actualized, it'll be pushing in on the self, as we can see here. Um, and so here in this picture, yes, we have capitalism, consumerism, amusements, governmental institution, false needs, the desire for security and media, all pushing in on the individual. But as Marcuse suggests, it is within the self that we are able to begin cracking open this sort of thing. And as we're going to explore here in a little, we can hope to maybe make this crack big enough to break down those systems of capitalist, imperialist, hegemonic patriarchy overall. And so what does regaining agency look like for Marcuse? And for him, it does look like the pacification of existence. For him, he says, development of man's struggle with man and with nature under conditions where the competing needs, desires, and aspirations are no longer organized by vested interest in domination and scarcity, an organization which perpetuates destructive forms of the struggle. So Marcuse is kind of giving us this idealistic sort of utopia wherein capitalist structures are no longer impeding on our needs and desires. And for me, what this makes me think of is ways that we can reclaim our needs and desires within this capitalist system. I think that is sort of what is being pointed to there by him. But Foucault has some very interesting ideas on this. And I took the time to check out The Care of the Self. To further explore what his ideas of liberation might look like. And some of the things I found were really beautiful. So let's talk about his association with the care of the self with this sort of labor, right? He's really pushing it takes time. And it is one of the biggest problems of the care of the self to determine what portion of one's day or one's life should be devoted to it. So he's saying that this is not something that you can decide in one day, right? Like not one day you're gonna wake up and be like, today I'm gonna focus on self-care and then check it off. This is a lifelong project of self-actualization. Um, and he's saying this time is not empty. It is filled with exercises, practical tasks, various activities. There's the care of the body to consider. There are meditations, there are readings, the notes, and there are also talks one has with a confidant, with friends. Work of oneself on oneself and communication with others are linked together. And I think that's really beautiful. So he's pointing out different aspects of the self that must be taken care of, right? Like not only do you have to do your self-care routine in the morning, you might also need to read your book at night, and take a nice warm bath in the evening. And that's all great. Um, and the other thing that he's really pointing out here is that social connections are really a central part of care for the self, and not devaluing those social connections is really crucial. Then he goes further to say to convert to oneself is to turn away from the preoccupations of the external world, from the concerns of ambition, from the fear of the future, then one can turn back to one's past, recall it to mind, and have a relationship with it that nothing can disturb. This is the part of our time that is sacred and set apart, put beyond the reach of all human mishaps, and removed from the dominion of fortune. This can neither be troubled nor snatched away. It is everlasting and an unanxious possession. And I think that is so beautiful. Like they can never take your imagination from you. Um, a really beautiful piece there. And I think that can really tie into other like Black Afrofuturist feminist writers, right? Who really embrace this idea of dystopia alongside of this idea of imagination as a tool of resistance. And maybe kind of what can be pulled out of here is like if you can self-actualize yourself and sort of reclaim yourself first, other people can go through that same process. And to tie this all up, resistance within self-actualization. As Foucault said, the self is not given to us. We have to create ourselves as a work of art. And I love this, especially when we go back to Adorno and Horkheimer, and their ideas of like entertainment and amusement is not art. And what is art is that thing that you create inside yourself when you take time to listen and sit with yourself, sit with your needs, your wants, your desires, your passions, your joys, and that is art. And you can continue to develop and grow um, forever. And that is kind of the best I have up with that. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope to hear you soon.